I think I can be heard. Mine's more of an observation. Do please check your voter registration status anyway, even if you think it's there or if you think it's not there. Personal experience, 2 days ago I was talking to a friend of mine. They said they never registered to vote. I said let's check, and it was there. So do just check. The one thing you can do, I guess, to prevent anyone else from using your vote is go and vote. Yeah, but do check, even if you, yeah.
Yes.
Two questions. One on gambling. The Sun and some articles are carrying the odds of about 1 to 10, especially in Penang. If you read the Sun yesterday, they carried articles saying that the illegal syndicates are already giving such odds. How and would this affect the result of the election? And the other one, more to Malik. You mentioned something about Haris Ibrahim and Arpil, the video that came out, but it seems to be quieted down. Can you comment on it?
Any more on this side? I thought I saw another hand. Yeah.
I didn't talk about last week about the likelihood that it will be status quo. What are your comments? It's not constitutional. What are your comments if Morrison comes back in power? Going forward, do you think anything else will change?
Okay. Would you like to?
Well, if I just answer the last question, I mean, I am quite optimistic, cautiously optimistic, and I'm hoping that there will be a new Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim, sworn in on Monday morning, 7th of May, and that's been my thrust of my position, and I'm not going to change it. And at the end of the day, it's a guess, because we don't have Gallup polls, we don't have, and a lot of militias may not tell you how they're going to vote and whatever. So, since I'm confident that's going to happen, I don't have to worry about the other scenario. But in order for it to happen, I think a few things have to be there. As I said, a lot of Malaysians must go and vote. The attendance, the turnout was 85%. And I think those of you who are pious, and I ended by saying you must pray for liberation. And if you are of a religious bent, and here it doesn't matter whether you're a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or whatever, I think if enough pious people in Malaysia pray for divine intervention, there will be a new government. And I speak, my mother is very pious and she's very religious. And I know a lot of people in the church, and if they are praying, I don't see why prayers can't be answered. So there will be a new government.
I'm not sure what you want to know about Haris Ibrahim and Abu. Any specific questions?
The violence, the possibility of violence.
Okay, I don't speak for Abu, but I can say I don't think they're promoting violence. I think they're saying that they're very serious about trying to stop what they perceive.
He did say that he's willing to die for the country.
Yeah, but that doesn't translate into violence. I'm not sure how that translates into violence actually, because what that what that suggests is. Can I just speak without?
Yeah, just speak without.
Yeah, I think what that suggests is that there's a possibility that there may be violence coming one way, and these people who are with Abu are prepared to stand up and stand their ground. And I mean, looking at what's happening on the ground, looking at the kind of things that they've been doing, and the Abu group, and again, I don't speak for them, but I know Haris, obviously. They've been doing a lot of work at grassroots, and what they've done is to actually go to about 22 to 24 constituencies, which they consider to be potential swing constituencies that are shaky. So they are saying that those 24 constituencies are being targeted by UMNO as much as they're being targeted by the Pakatan, and they will figure in several ways. One, if they swing to the Pakatan, it may have a definitive impact on the outcome, and two, the right people need to get in there because the candidates themselves may be capable of being induced. So what they're saying is they're trying to stop that from happening in several ways. So what have they been doing? They've been doing grassroots work in, for example, the Felda settlements. And we've been told over and over again that the Felda settlements are vote banks for the Barisan. And what I'm hearing from the Abu team is that it's not the case. They've actually gone in, they're actually meeting lots of people. The ANA NGO is trying to stop them from coming in. Other people are trying to stop them, but the Felda settlers themselves are asking them to come in to speak. And they're making traction, they're gaining traction there. And I think that's a very interesting thing. What else are they saying? They're saying that we don't want foreigners voting in our elections. And I read a tweet recently about how in Bangladesh they just voted in a new prime minister, is that right? Or government. And I felt like saying, that's fine as long as you don't vote in our next government. And I don't think my view is unique. I think all of us feel that way. And what these guys are saying is that, you know, why are we allowing this to happen? They're not saying we should go out and kill any foreigner we see. They're not saying that. They're saying their outreach campaign involves talking to people who might be tempted to do this, for whatever reason, and persuading them to do otherwise. And from what I'm hearing, if they can get as much as, say, a reduction of 50% of those foreigners who are inclined to vote as Malaysians, that's already a very big step forward, going by the numbers that Tommy spoke about earlier. So, from what I'm hearing, they're actually working in tandem with other civil society groups, and what they're proposing to do is in each Saloran, they're going to have as many as 30 people. This is independent of the polling agents and counting agents. That's 30 people made up of the Abu teams, as well as NGOs, civil societies, and opposition activists, who are going to make sure that when they look at people standing in a line, as Tommy said, you know, they're going to be asking tough questions. And they're going to say, well, what are you doing here? Because, you know, you obviously don't look. Of course, I'm worried because I might be asked the same question. So I'm not sure whether we can just simplify what they're doing as into this very black and white thing. I think what Abu is saying is something that all of us are thinking, not the violence, but rather the fact that we don't want to let this very important election be pulled out from under our feet because, you know, we're pacifists or whatever it is. And what they're saying is that maybe in the face of a kind of onslaught, a juggernaut, as it were, that doesn't seem to respect the rules of decency the way we might, maybe we need to take steps, not violence, but we need to take strong, decisive steps to ensure that the elections are not hijacked. Per se is important, but per se may not be enough. I think that's the point they're making. And I think, you know, barring the fact that they are, well, I don't think, because he's made some corrections after that, clarifications rather, that they're not promoting violence in any way. I think they're doing an important thing. Yeah? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, like really pressing questions, impassioned questions? Yes.
Last one. Yeah. Mark, and I suppose as the last comment, you're speaking to a crowd of pro-Pakistan supporters, anti-Barisan supporters. Now, if you're speaking to the opposite, what was one thing that you would say to change their mind? Just one topic. Speaking to my cousin last night, pro-Barisan guy, speaking to the earlier hours in the morning, very difficult to change. They don't see anything wrong with the country. They're pro-institution. And I think above all, probably they don't see that Pakistan is doing or saying anything that is, shall we say, they're more professing anti-Barisan rather than pro-Pakistan philosophies or manifesto. So what would be the one thing or the one topic that you can address a pro-Barisan supporter within 20 minutes, perhaps?
Well, I think you have to accept that there will be some, maybe 30%, 30-40% of the electorate who will be voting Barisan regardless, like in England, Conservative, Labour and all that. So you have to respect that, you know, that is democracy. So I think a lot of them you just cannot convince, just like a lot of them cannot convince us. That you must respect that. But if you think the guy is in a borderline, so I asked first of all, who is the target? So we have friends, and of course they will remain nameless, Mr. A or Mr. B, we know is a Barisan person, you have to respect that. But there may be some people who are on the borderline or maybe then I would say, to answer your question, probably corruption. I think that's something that's easy to understand, because we talk about economy and health and education and all that but corruption, surely they recognize. And just give, as I said, go back to Hussein on, we don't have to go that way. Hussein on in 1981, we were really corruption free. And 30 years later, we are now with Vietnam and Indonesia and wherever. Soon, we will join places like India, where I remember even years ago, you couldn't buy a train ticket. You go and buy a train ticket, you have to slip the guy a bribe. We will soon be reaching that kind of thing. So the cancer of corruption is something that I think everybody can understand, and they would have come across with sometime in their life.
I would ask how much I'm worth to shut up. No, seriously, I think the best way to respond to that is by saying, by sharing with you a story. All right. If you're talking to cronies, obviously that's not going to change. I mean, nothing here is touching them anyway. They just go to off somewhere else and live the life that they want. But a while ago, back to Haris Ibrahim. A while ago, Haris was at a vigil in Dataran Merdeka, one of these many candlelight things that they were doing. And again, the police were out in full force, because these guys are really threatening with these candles. And Haris was then asked to come in to give a statement in a police station opposite stadium, the stadium police station, the big one. It's actually special branch. So I was asked to come with him as his lawyer, and we did. We went, and on the day of the interview, the investigating officer was quite a senior man who was from East Malaysia, and obviously he's been in the force long enough to be promoted to that rank, so he's to some extent towed the line, and he's quite prevalent at all these demos or assemblies in KL, especially those around Dataran Merdeka. He's always there. So he told Haris, look, you need to answer these questions and I'll need to take down the answers. And Haris says, no, unless you promise me that you'll answer my questions when we're done. So I'm thinking, this is the worst kind of client you want. Right? We're just trying to get out of the police stations, neither of us being thrown into some lockup somewhere, right? Just get out. He says, no, you have to promise me. And this police officer was saying, what are you talking about? I'm asking the questions. He refused to answer. And finally, the man relented. So then the next thing was the race category on the statement. And Haris says, my race is anak bangsa Malaysia. And he goes, no, you can't be either Malay, Indian, Chinese or others. He goes, no, I refuse to answer your questions until you write down anak bangsa Malaysia. And it went on like this for a while. And finally the man writes anak bangsa Malaysia. So then we go, now I remember what, so it wasn't a vigil. This was where Haris and a bunch of people ran into the UMNO open house for Hari Raya wearing free RPK t-shirts. Remember that? And he gave Badawi a t-shirt, free RPK. You remember this? Anyway, they all got, obviously don't turn up, and he gave the interview and so on. Okay, so he gives his answers, but why he did this, and he was then asked to sign a statement, and he refused until the man agreed to answer his questions. And this is what happened. Haris said to him, look, this photograph here, there are two children. Are these your children? And he said, yes. He says, how old are they? I think he said 10 and 12, something like this. He goes, are you not worried about their future? He says, of course I am. Then he says, don't you recognize that what we're doing is for them as much as it is for other children? And he goes, I do. Then he says, so why the hell are you chasing us with sticks and stuff when we're out there protesting what is in the interest of everyone, including your children? And then he says, what do you expect me to do? These are my orders. He says, look, I'm not asking you to defy your orders. Those are your orders. But maybe the next time when you come after us, you can just say, hey, look, I'm really sorry, I'm doing my job. Could you just come with me to the station rather than hitting me on the head with a stick or whatever it is, or locking, handcuffing me and dragging me and brutalizing me and so on and so forth. Can we at least agree on that? And the man says, yeah, I don't see that's a problem. And that was the way, honestly, that's the way the interview ended, with a hug. And a photo. I do not want to ever represent a client like this. So to that man in the Barisan or the Barisan supporter, you have to ask him, what do you actually want moving forward for your kids? I think that's really the central question. Thank you.
I'm going to conclude. I'm going to take about 3 minutes to conclude, if you don't mind, because I want to promote another session that's happening here on Thursday, which involves about 4 members of the media. I think that should be a very interesting one, and we've got someone from the Star, thankfully, to speak of the platform of the national media. Because I think one of the very, very important things that we need to talk about is not just the role of the media, really, but what our understanding is of journalistic vocation, which we don't seem to have. And these are some of the subliminal issues, I think, surrounding the general elections, GE13. I think, I'm very irritated here hearing this Sanusi Junid name. So can I just please tell you, you should tell Sanusi Junid that essentially his viability in public life is very reflective in the way he walks in Bangsa village, nodding to everybody, and nobody nods to him back. So we should just remind him that his politics to that side. If I could just also interject just one thing. There seems to be, every time we do one of these sessions, if you look at the national media and then we do one of these sessions, there are some of the complexities and subliminal issues in Malaysian politics that are really not being addressed. One of the very interesting things, of course, is that I think the Barisan Nasional are irredeemable. And that our national project really has collapsed. But when you enter the field of politics, things become very, very interesting. That's why your question. Dato' Najib Razak has a 61% approval rating at his lowest. 61%. Most politicians will give a right arm and a left leg to have that kind of approval rating. Whereas the Barisan Nasional Coalition has only, at its best, a 35% approval rating. So whether an individual prime minister can actually see this election through for himself is something interesting to watch. So there are really very interesting areas of Malaysian politics that are going to be played out, I think, in this next election. And what I hope, with the journalist session, is that there may be more contrarian views that encapsulate some of these grey areas. So please do try and come for that. So thank you for your attendance here tonight. And it's Thursday, 8:30 p.m. and I look forward to seeing you.